All right, so you're interested in making cold brew coffee. This is awesome. You're gonna love it. And even though coffee shops and Starbucks and everybody else, we have like the gas station in Arizona now, even though all these different places that are selling cold brew want you to think it's this really elaborate and painstaking process. It takes 24 hours, and at midnight a gnome comes in and stirs it every 7 minutes for 19 seconds each time. And then when we open it, a ray of sunshine has to be on it, so it's the perfect cold brew. That's just not the case. Cold brew is a lot easier to make than a lot of people realize, and that's what we're going to go over in this video. And you actually don't need to go out and buy anything if you don't want to. If you live in any sort of home with any sort of jar, or if you've made coffee before, or basically anything, if you have anything in your home, you can probably make cold brew coffee. All right? So you really only need two things. You need a holding device, something to hold the coffee while it's brewing, and then you need a filter. Okay, so it's kind of just like making hot coffee, except you don't have the coffee machine kind of moving the water and blah, 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 and all pre-configured for you. You just need to do a little bit of handiwork on your own, all right? So when it comes to the holding device, probably the most common one is this coffee pot, which is great for making cold brew. You just won't be able to make hot coffee, but that's okay because hot coffee is inferior to cold brew coffee. Don't tell the coffee snobs. All right, so you might just need, this would work great, a coffee pot, or something like a ball mason jar. Like this is a large one. They have smaller ones. You can do a pitcher. Basically anything large and preferably glass works really great. If you use something plastic, it might take on the flavor if you're using flavorings or just whatever, just plastic. Just prefer glass, but hey, we use plastic for a lot of other stuff like the Toddy Kit, which is another video, but anyways, glass is good. And then you need a way to filter the coffee when you're done. Now, the easiest way, again, if you make hot coffee, is to use a coffee filter. And this is just a standard filter. You might have a metal one. The only downside to coffee filters is that when you're doing the filtering process, it can take a little bit of time. It can be a little bit time consuming. The coffee grounds go in, the water's coming out, and it just doesn't filter extremely quickly, at least not for my taste. And one thing that you'll notice as you're making more cold brew is that the filtering process, the time and the ease and the cleanliness of it is one very important thing. And then also how finely it filters. The quality of the filtering is also another aspect that you're going to be keeping in mind that you'll notice can be frustrating. Now the quality of filtering in these filters is very high because you're not going to get small grounds or sediment coming out of it because this is a very good filter, but it can take a little while for the water to go through, and that can be a little bit of a pain. All right, so a coffee filter works great. You could also use a cheesecloth. You can buy this. I bought this one at Whole Foods. I bought this version here at Fry's, which is a local grocery store, so any sort of local grocery store. The great news is that these are reusable, but these are not as strong of a filter. They have, you know, pockets, little holes in them that sediment can come through, or small coffee grinds, and that can just be a little bit rough when you're drinking your coffee. It just might not taste quite as good. So cheesecloth is an option, or a sieve, you know, something that's going to filter the main coffee grounds out of your coffee. And what I used to do when I first started is I would actually take a sieve and I would do one filter through it. I would filter it one time, and then I would take a regular coffee filter and I'd filter it again to get all the really small sediment out. And that worked out pretty well. Now, if you make French press coffee at home, you can also use a French press. And this kind of is the best of both worlds, where you can put the coffee in the bottom, and then you're going to be putting in the water. And then when you push it down, it'll just filter it out, and the coffee will be at the bottom. It'll naturally filter just the exact same way that you make French press coffee. It's just going to be in there for a lot longer. The only issue with maybe doing something like that is this is not a very large quantity of cold brew. So you might go through this in a day, maybe 2 days or something along those lines. And then you're going to have to make it and then you're going to have to make it again. So sometimes a larger container, like a pitcher or this large mason jar, really helps make a larger quantity so that you can keep it for 3 or 4 or 5 days, because it does take a little bit of time to make. You can't just, you know, get it going in the morning. All right, so I'm going to just show you what I would do if I was going to make coffee at home and I just had some of these things. I have approximately 1 cup of coffee here in this little jar, and I would use the coffee pot because, I mean, it's basically designed for, you know, everything we're talking about. So I pour the 1 cup of coffee in, and I personally prefer a 5-to-1 drinking ratio for cold brew. And that means that I'm going to put 5 cups of water into this coffee pot and 1 cup of coffee. Now, remember, if you're looking at any other resources for cold brew coffee, you're really going to be looking at two different things. You have volume, which is cups, and then you have weight, all right? And so the ratios that you hear in both of those different categories are going to be different. I typically tend to use volume, even though it's less accurate, because it's kind of easier to do. I have a lot of measuring devices, like a cup measuring device at home, and all of these things have cups on them, and then I can put the coffee in the water and I can just match it up. So I usually do 1 cup of coffee and 5 cups of water. That's a drinkable ratio for me. I like it a little bit strong. If you wanted to make a concentrate, you could do 1 cup of water, 1 cup of coffee to maybe 2 cups of water, or 1 cup of coffee to maybe 3 cups of water. And then when you're done and you filtered it all out, you can then dilute it with a little bit of water. So for example, if I'm putting 1 cup of coffee in here and then 5 cups of water, it's going to go about 1/3 of the way up, and that's going to be my cold brew. Now if I wanted to make a lot of cold brew out of this one session, I might put 4 cups of coffee in here and 8 cups of water, and it would be really strong. And then when I poured it into my glass, I would just cut it with some water, and it's going to be great, and you just don't need to use as much of the concentrate because it's concentrated. You can just dilute it. So I put 1 cup of coffee in here, then I'm going to put 5 cups of water in. I'm not going to do it in this video because I'm in this environment, but 5 cups of water, and then I'm going to let it sit there for, let's say, 16 hours. That was fun. 16 hours, that was great. And let me make one more comment about the coffee grounds because I forgot to mention it. The recommendation for cold brew is that your coffee is ground coarsely, and you can do that in a grocery store like Trader Joe's, or a lot of the grocery stores now have the grinding machines right in there, and you can say go to coarse grind my coffee into the bag, and you're good to go. If you're buying ground coffee, it's usually going to be a finer grind. So in that case, you may just brew it for less time because the finer the grind, the faster it the faster it processes, the faster it brews because there's less surface area in the coffee. So if you don't have coarsely ground coffee, that's okay. Just maybe don't let it sit there for as long and you're going to be fine. I have coarsely ground coffee because that's what I use in my coffee grinder, and then I'll do it for like maybe 16 or 20 hours. I actually tend to do it for 24 hours almost every time just out of convenience because I have a job during the day, so I will make the coffee at night, and then the next night I'll filter it and prepare it. So mainly I do 24 hours just because it's convenient and I don't want to worry about doing something in the middle of the day or like all the logistics of it. So, all right, so we've let that sit there for 24 hours, boom, and now we need to filter it. So you're gonna have water in here and coffee, it's gonna be muddy and annoying. And so I'm gonna put this filter here in the mason jar, and then I'm gonna take my coffee and I'm gonna pour it in. I'm gonna hold this probably because I don't want it to go in the mason jar, that would suck. And I'm gonna pour it in, the coffee ground's gonna go in there, it's gonna filter out, which is just how a filter works. So if you need information on that, Google how does a filter work. Water's going to go through it, and then I'm going to have my mason jar with my cold brew coffee and all the grounds in here. I'm going to pull them out, and I'm going to be good to go. I'm going to put this in my refrigerator, and it's going to last for up to 2 weeks. So with cold brew, it's highly recommended to make big batches, maybe once a week, because it lasts forever, and it's very drinkable. It can go down very quickly, and so that works. So that's highly recommended to make a bigger batch. Also recommended to make concentrates, because then you can just cut it with water. You can have it as strong or as weak as you like. So even if it's the afternoon, you're like, hey, I want coffee. Maybe it's a psychological thing. You can really dilute it a lot. And then, it just feels like maybe you got a little caffeine or it's more like an iced tea, something like that. So those are the basics behind making cold brew coffee at home without going out and buying anything and just having everything you need right in front of you. Now, if you want to learn more about cold brew coffee, I'm offering the Cold Brew Coffee Mastery course, and you can see more information on this page about that course. And that course is awesome. We go into different brewing kits. We go into coffee grounds more, different types of roasts. We go into water, ratios, steeping times, nitro coffee. I'm doing flavors. We're doing kegging and basically how to set up your kegs. So the Mastery course has a bunch of information. Some of that stuff, the kegging, is not included. That's going to be a part 2, but it's part of the community. So that's kind of more of a commercial thing anyway. But if you want to learn more about cold brew coffee and really get deep into it, then I highly recommend you sign up. You're not going to regret it. We have a 30-day guarantee. You'll get your money back if you think that it's a crappy course. I hope you won't. But quite honestly, this information about making it at home, you can get the basics just by Googling on the internet. But we go a lot deeper in a lot more categories. And really, if you're looking to make a really amazing cold brew coffee, that would be a great start for you. So thank you for watching. I hope you check out the Mastery course. It's going to be amazing. And enjoy your cold brew. this is the first step in making amazing cold brew for you and your family and whoever else drinks it. And then when people come over and you have it in your little mason jar and you're taking pictures on the porch and your Instagram profile is going to be off the hook because of this process. So thanks again. Join the Mastery course. Email below with any questions. I'm Adam Arkfeld, and I really appreciate your time.